see if anybody would like to take minutes tonight on behalf of Sheila.
I'm happy to.
Thank you. All right, so, and I'm sure you can just sync up with Emily too, and I'll also take some extra notes if needed. And I know we have a couple folks missing too, so I'm sure that'll be important for them to catch up. So we'll go ahead and look at the previous minutes for May 15th. Were there any comments from, or anything to revise from May 15th meeting minutes? Okay, not seeing any. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second motion. Yeah.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor? All right, so we'll go ahead and approve the minutes then. So we'll start with Cindy's flyers in our order of business here today. I know Emily has sent over a packet, so it would have been on page 5, I believe, in the packet. And again, this is so that we would have this flyer really is so that we can start to have something to promote as opposed to just the brochures, which I know are may or may be in back order at this point. So just something to promote should we start tabling in different places or for fundraising efforts. So open to discussion. Yes.
We have flyers now.
Oh, okay. Good news.
Did you get them?
I did. I have a set of them out at the station in our entryway and I meant to bring them. I'm sorry.
And we also have a 1-pager going through the Dartmouth communications process that we expect to be ready anytime now. Like I'm hopeful that by early next week, we have the 1-pager, but the flyers are ready. And that being said, I don't necessarily have a problem with this one, but the other ones are ready.
I don't know what the Dartmouth communication process is.
I don't either. I don't think the people that work there do.
What, help me out.
So our stuff is logoed by Dartmouth Health. So
Oh.
they've got a whole process of anything with their logo has to go
Well,
through
that-
this
So
game. Yeah.
I thought it was how to get a community nurse. I get it.
No. So just for the 1-page informational flyer, which is more directed at referral sources, just has to go through the approval process.
Sure.
before it's been-
Thank you.
Just not Enfield specific, really.
It's not-
Okay, so Cindy's is Enfield calls to the community specifically here too, so there's something to know in case. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't.
Do we need to approve it or?
I just have one
Yes.
tiniest point.
Yes.
Under typical reasons for a nursing visit, the second bullet point is multiple falls in the home. I would like to suggest falls in the home, dropping the multiple. I know it seems like a little thing. This is the only reason I say this. This is my, what I do for work. So I older adults, right, have a 20% chance of injury with every fall. 25 to 30% of older adults fall each year. And then if somebody has a fall, 50% of those fall again. So even one fall is a serious, potentially serious incident. And so I just wouldn't like to get, I think the perception in the community, if anybody's having falls, that it could be an appropriate nurse referral. They don't have to have multiple falls in order for it to be an appropriate referral. So that's
So like one fall is enough.
one fall is enough, in my opinion, to,
I remember my mother saying, well, I fell 3 times, but I didn't injure myself.
but I didn't injure myself.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
And some people feel that, most people feel that's fine. That's true. If they didn't injure themselves, then it's not a big deal. So great, they didn't injure themselves, but there's a high percentage chance of an injury on a second fall. So if we can get somebody in there to potentially prevent an injury. So anyway, that's just my talking about that look like.
Emily.
I just wonder about the residents who can no longer get out of the house only because of there are some boundaries to what community nurses can and cannot provide. And I wonder if that kind of enters the realm of people who may need someone to pick up prescriptions or groceries, and that's not something that the community nurses would provide. I don't know if that might lead to miscommunication based off of the services that are available.
Yeah, so the fourth bullet point under
Yes.
typical reasons for visiting.
Yep.
Other comments? Is this something we, oh, yes, no.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, Emily, to that point, do you think maybe just, a clarification that it's for, a medical visit? Or a nursing visit in the home? I don't know how it could be worded better. Is that what you're thinking, like, just to clarify the reason for people who can't get out of the home?
I guess I would go so far as to say to avoid saying it,
Just
just
not
because
say it at all.
it's not specifically geared towards people who could not get out of the home. It's more, I mean, I guess we could go lean towards the fact that it is accessible because nurses can help you both access the healthcare as well as whether it's connecting via telehealth or the nurse is physically coming to you, like it's geared towards in-home providing of care, I guess is that thought line.
Mhm.
Question for the brochure and the one pager, does it cover what community nursing is?
I was
Because,
gonna say, I think we should probably just go with the one that we have.
yeah,
Just for keeping it streamlined and not causing confusion,
And
but
it has Enfield's logo on it.
yeah.
oh, okay, which one, the brochure,
The new one that was.
the new
printed.
one?
Yeah.
And it has the same information with the email and the contact number, okay.
Yeah,
So I think if I recall right, we spoke the urgency because last time we weren't sure at all that there would be any printed, if at all, this summer.
right.
And so this was the reason why Cindy had proposed this. So you know, it sounds like if all the information is covered already with the Enfield logo and all the contact information, and it does say Enfield there because it has the Enfield logo.
Yeah, I think, I mean, my recollection is that Cindy's purpose of this was as a stopgap until the flyers come out. So
But the
we've got
flyers.
flyers now. We're not actually gonna use their print system. Population Health is just gonna print them and fold them themselves. So we should be in a good enough spot.
So how do we get copies for you?
And just as a side note, the PDF of the one that was printed is what's available online under the community nursing page. So that trifold is exactly what's available electronically as well.
Just the logo of Enfield is added then.
Everything exactly
Oh,
as
the
it
same.
was printed is exactly what has been posted online. So it has the Enfield logo, the Grantham logo, Lebanon, City of Lebanon logo, Dartmouth Health, everything as it is printed, as present.
So just for the record, the reason why there was a gap, we just ran out of it. And then we couldn't get the printout,
Yeah, we ran out of it and then,
so nothing really changed from that. Okay,
well, we didn't have the logos on them just yet.
so this one does.
Yeah, this one has. But the Dartmouth printing system changed.
Changed, got it.
So that's why there was a big delay.
So can I ask, did I hear you say that Dartmouth is printing, Pop Health is printing the flyers for us, so we don't have to go about that.
So with that, do we want to continue to talk about the draft or go ahead and table this in case, I didn't get this point, we already have a flyer and there's gonna be a brochure and a one pager coming out.
And to the point of your question, you have the PDF up on your webpage, like you decided you wanted more and didn't want to wait for us to get them to you. Let's print them.
I think we could take one.
So we'll just table, Okay, we don't have to vote to table, right? We can just table, okay. So let's move on to the next, item here, fundraising. So Emily, I'll pass it over to you to get us started.
So just to start off, thank you again to Apple for putting in the grant with the Community Nurse Connection. That did help us secure the $500 grant that was available. It has been received and is set aside as grant funding. I have been advised by our assistant town manager how to be coding that so that it's coded directly to the grant and not. Yeah, I know the town side of things that I need to know for that. So our current total is $66,450, which includes that grant. Sorry.
Any questions to Emily about the amounts, the totals that we have? We don't have anything pending at this point, correct?
Nope, everything was just approved at the select board meeting on the 17th.
All right, Steve, over to you.
Thanks. I'd like to say a few things because my understanding has changed considerably from when I sent that draft in a plan. So I want to give you a little background, but first, thanks to Kristen Barnum for working with me on this. When we set out, the goal here is to come up with a plan for our fundraising for the next, whatever it is, couple of years. To try to figure out what are the key decisions we have to make, and then to kind of list everything we don't know. That's what was behind that draft that showed up in the packet. Completely unexpectedly, I ran into Eric Russell, who's the chair of the select board, at the Community Nurse Connection annual meeting after I had sent that draft in. And he asked how things were going, and we got to chatting, and he answered a number of questions that I had, which I think were kind of key. Hence my little speech here and sort of shifting focus a little bit. First, he explained how the town timing of the select board meeting works, which I had completely wrong. My bad, but that has a big impact on our planning. So now I understand that March town meeting approves the budget for the current fiscal year. Everyone probably knew that except me, but now I know. And the second thing, major thing that he clarified, and I may not completely understand this is all tentative, is that basically, if you want to get town funding, really the only way to go about it is to submit a warrant article for a town meeting, and then if an appropriation is approved at a town meeting, it's not legally required for the town to continue to fund it after that coming year, but it's essentially taken that way. But the budget committee, et cetera, assumes, well, if the town voted for it once, we can continue to fund it. They don't have to, but that's how the process works. So given that new understanding, some of the questions I raised in that first draft are now moot. We still have, as I see it, 3 major decisions to make before we can come up with a plan. Again, those are we going to assume that at some point the town fully funds community nursing? And if not, well, what percentage are they going to assume? Second, when is that going to happen? And then third, how many hours per week of nursing are we going to assume between now and then? Again, these aren't executive decisions. We're not telling the town these things. It's just that we have to have a plan. We have to make some assumptions before we know how much money to raise. So having said all that, I would like to give you a piece of paper, which basically lays out 2 options. 2 answers to those questions, plan A, plan B. Plan A basically says we will plan to go to the town meeting in March of 2026 for full funding. Plan B says we'll go in March of 2027. So we're gonna, under this, and this is all for the committee to debate and change, we're gonna assume the town will pick up full funding, either in 26 or 27. And between now and then, we'll go with 10 hours per week. Under those assumptions, I can calculate, you'll see how much we have to raise. A lot of details, I don't know if you are terribly interested in the details. The bottom line is, if we get funding in 26, we have to raise about, I'll round up, $9,000. If we get full funding in 27, we have to raise $3,000. So that's what I have to say, and now.
I do have a question. It says you're planning.
Yeah.
Let's just say you were going in 2026 for funding in 2026.
Right.
The only problem you're gonna have with that is Lebanon's gonna want a contract in 2025 or 2026. So you need to go to town meeting the year before you want funding.
Geez.
So
City
you can
operates
go
on a
in
calendar
2026
year.
or 2027. You don't have to, but if they say no, where's the funding coming from?
Okay, so in the spreadsheet that's printed in front of you, I assume that we, the committee, will raise funds for the first 3 months of 26 or 27.
Yeah, but you're signing an annual contract with Lebanon.
You're signing it.
Yeah, so we have to have the funding for the contract we're signing.
What do you,
I would recommend
Recommend.
if you want the town to pay for funding in 2026, we take something to the town, this coming town meeting. Asking if they want to add this program, because that's what the select board said, that if we could fundraise and do it, they're okay with it, but they don't know if they want to add a program to the town. They want
Could
the
I-
townspeople to make that decision.
I propose an alternative. Reason I am is this decision also affects how much data we have when we go to town meeting. And if we go in 26, we will have 2 full years of data. And the story that we can tell from that.
I would be fine with that. I would just plan on funding 2026 at that.
That's what I was going to say. Why don't we plan to fund 26? If we lose a town meeting, at least we're covered through 26. $8,700 is a very small amount of money to raise. We're gonna raise that by 35,000-ish. So now we're at about
The
4.
other possibility you could do is go to them in 2026 for like 50-50 funding. And that almost guarantees you another 2 years.
Yeah,
And you can even say with the plan to fund 100% through taxpayer money next year or something. I can work with you on that.
okay.
Also, just for your planning, that $5,000 community nurse connection grant has been in place for the last at least 3 years that I've been involved with the program, 4 years that I've been involved with the program. And I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Which 5,000
So yeah, which,
The $5,000
Lebanon?
from community nurse connection.
oh, from community nurse
Yeah,
every year or
to,
to us?
well, I mean, yes, you have to apply for it. It is a competitive grant, but it is unlikely that you wouldn't receive the money because no one's competing against you for it. So it's for the betterment of the nurses within the town.
500 or 5,000?
500, yeah, sorry, 500.
Oh, okay.
oh, I was like, oh, that's
Right.
fantastic. I did not apply for it. 5,000.
Sorry, 500.
That's so,
5,000, we can. close up.
5,000 is their budget for the
Yes.
whole thing.
Yeah.
For the whole grant. Sorry,
I guess now,
but that's a reasonable portion of, 8,000.
yeah, no, it is. Sorry, I just have to write this down. So, I don't want to make this a negotiation between us since it's the committee that has to decide. And I really want to hear from committee members. But I at least like the idea of saying we're going to fund 26 fully. And I mean, that's 2+ years to raise 40,000, we raised 60,000 in 6 months, you know. And we'll get started talking, so.
Just had a clarification question. So are you suggesting that if we raise money for 26, we would go to 26 town meeting and request for 27? Is that correct? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I think, and we can strategize that, but what the select board really said at the public hearing was, let's put this out there, see if it works, and then we can go to the townspeople and see if it's a program that they want to fund and.
Yeah.
Which is why I want to, I mean, obviously, I want to have as much data and as much experience with the program as we reasonably can.
So, and just so everybody's perfectly clear about how the process works, is the city runs on a calendar year budget, not a fiscal year budget. So we're January to January, which means that we're working on our budgets right now. They're due in October with hearings through November and final council vote in December. So that means that we're asking Ed to sign a new contract for next year, kind of nowish.
Right.
And then it really the March town meeting is really not conducive to us working together. It's the same in both towns, so we're used to it, but it means that we have to make some assumptions.
It actually works with what we're talking about, though.
Yeah.
If we go to 2026 or 2027.
Yeah.
Then you've got town meeting approval to put it in the budget for 27 and move forward, and then I can confidently sign the contract.
Then you've got it 6 months before we ask for a new contract.
And Jeremy's just warning us that we need our fundraising by September 1st, not by January. Is that what I'm?
Well, actually, we bill you one time at the end of the year.
I'm getting a little.
Yeah, we
slack
just
from
need the
that.
contract. We need to know that we're gonna get the money. You know, we won't make this year's payment till the end of this year or next year, and then the same for the next year, so. You'll have some time to
Yeah.
raise funds, but
Well,
you're contracting to pay the bill.
yeah, there's a question of, in my mind, so when we go after funding and what story we're telling people. It's a little awkward that we've already raised 24 and 25. Because we don't have a kind of, we need this money, you know, how fundraisers are, we need this money tomorrow. But we need, if I'm counting right, we do actually need the money for 26, about a year from now. So you would have confidence that there's,
Well, to have confidence to sign the contract, yeah.
that's what I mean, yeah, ideal,
The bill will be due a year after.
right? But yeah. I suspect if you see we're close, but we're 5,000 short, well, we've got months to raise 5,000. Is that?
Yeah, it depends how your fundraising goes.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't necessarily have to fundraise on the, you know, we need the money now or we're gonna close. It could be to help us sustain this program for the long term.
I mean, one of the key issues obviously is the Burn Foundation, whatever. They could do it with all with one check but I don't want to rely only on them. So when do we go to them?
Annually,
Is that sort of how it's done?
I would go to them every
I've
single
worked with
year.
the Burn
With a
Foundation.
decent amount. I mean, don't ask
I've
them to
worked-
fund the whole thing at one time, but if you need 40,000 and you ask them for 20 annually, they'll probably write you a check for 20 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would go to them annually as well. Have it.
yeah.
And that'll just keep pushing your numbers out. And if you can get a few other ones, great.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd mentioned to Emily, I don't know if she brought back to you guys is I wouldn't push it on people you see, but leaving something with the patients and people you see that says, you know, this program relies on donations to keep moving, that family members and people that might donate after the fact.
Right, that's a good idea. And I think our plan from last month was to send out, at some point, send out a letter to everyone in the town with a discrete contribution request. For my money, it doesn't really matter how much they give. That's really about advertising and getting people to know the program. But if money comes in, anybody who donates money has that much more ownership of the program, even if it's $50.
Right.
I found that it's successful if we are to obtain Burns Foundation, then to also tag, to make note of that, because people like to give where there's already funding
Yeah.
from a noted
Yeah,
foundation, so.
I mean, the way I think this works is there are about 5 foundations that we know of we can send letters to. And then there may be 5 or 10 individuals that I can go talk to, all of whom I know at one level or another, and they're gonna ask me, well, what's the Burn Foundation doing? What's this? What's that? So that's kind of a timing question. I want to be able to say, we continue to get good support from the Burn Foundation, so your 5,000 or your 2,000 or whatever counts toward something.
Yeah. What's the process now for an individual donor? So, like, if we were asking for donations, is it a check? Are we making it easy, accessible for people to donate? Or is it just really, they would write a check?
It's writing a check and
Is-
mailing it into the town.
Okay. Has that been successful? Just because I've not. Has that proved to be successful, accessible? I just,
You mean-
I've brought up doing a Venmo option because I see a lot
Yeah.
of other, but that's more of a nonprofits typically set those up. We are not a nonprofit. We're under the umbrella of the town, which
Mhm.
complicates that in that manner. So it was discussed, but there are some barriers there.
I mean, you mean the process itself?
yeah, just like how do you collect, right? Is it
Yeah.
in cash? Is it check? Is it QR code, PayPal, Venmo?
Well, so
Sounds
far,
just like,
and I don't intend to collecting cash.
yeah,
It was all by check, and we just gave them the information of the town, how to write the check and where to send it, and I think that worked ultimately seamlessly, didn't it, Emily? We didn't have any problems with that, I know.
We didn't have any problems. I think that it can present a challenge of accessibility sometimes because when you are looking at a span of generations who are accessing information, younger generations are going to be looking for, say, like a QR code on something, to be looking at it electronically. You know, when you go to a vendor at the market, you're paying them via Venmo. It is an ease of access that makes it just a little bit easier, where I can scan and send it to you right now versus, well, I need to find my checkbook when I get home. And then 20 tasks later, oh yeah, I need to find my checkbook, and guess what? I still haven't found yet. 3 months later, I haven't found my checkbook. And so it is, I think that was the question of accessibility. So I think that the fundraising that was done was successful because it was very targeted and it was easy to make access for those things. If it is going to be a more kind of blanket public approach, that is something that, would be beneficial, but not absolutely necessary, I guess. I would leave it at that.
Gonna say I would agree. 20 somethings don't have checks.
Yeah.
Couldn't write one if they needed to.
So are there any options? I mean, is there any
You can look at
workaround?
something.
or even like if a QR code goes to, or like if a QR code goes to the town website, where then they can, I know like you can pay things through the town now, so I'm wondering if the same thing, like you can,
We'll figure it
yeah.
out.
I just think it would also make it easier if we're talking about family members of, and we're not necessarily targeting the age group here, but just a wider range. And given that there's, I'm sure, a lot of new movement into the community, also younger families as well, so. But I
also
agree,
think that
accessibility.
The more arm's length the request is, like if it's a letter in the mail, and you're really expecting $50 and $100 donations, the ease of doing that matters a lot. Somebody's gonna write a $5,000 check.
Right,
First of all,
they're gonna-
they're
yeah.
not young,
No.
so they have a check.
There'll be it, yeah, it'll probably come from a trust, right, but, right, so like if I see it in the mail and I'm like, oh, good, I'll just scan it and then send it off, it's still money collected from the community, yeah.
So Ed, you said there's, you guys will be able to work that out. You'll
I'll work with Emily. We'll see if we can figure out how to do it.
Gotcha.
There's gotta be a way.
Okay.
So is there, I think we should make a motion on this plan? What do you think? April, we
Um,
need that or can we just?
I mean, I don't know that we can make an agreement, like, I think this is I think as a group, we can continue I agree with with the plan here and raising the funds. I don't know if we should wait to see if our other colleagues have some questions also. I know we'll have another meeting, so I'm not sure that making a motion right now makes the most sense.
This works for this group a lot too. You guys don't need a lot of formal motions and stuff, but
Yeah.
you know, here's the plan we're gonna do. Let's go make it happen.
So I think,
Just let me, for my purposes, reiterate what I think the consensus is. We'll fundraise through 26. That's about 42K roughly. We'll assume 10 hours per week, not more. And we'll go to town meeting in 26 for 27.
that's what I
That's about
understand.
it, I think. Is that the core of it?
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Great. Great. I ask add one more question.
Yeah, of course.
What role can the committee play in the process of getting a warrant article on the warrant or whatever it's on? I can't remember.
Well, I would work on what you want to do and then just make recommendations through me. That's what
It doesn't
that's what the
require,
committee's supposed to do.
doesn't require signatures.
No.
Oh. Boy, I need
No,
to
we
know
have a
about
few
that.
committees that go petition and try to get warrant articles, and all they have to do is write one up and ask the select board.
Okay, so the select board can, yeah,
We can put anything on that we want. It usually works best that way, because then you can run it through us and we can make sure that they're legally written and done before we pass it on.
and these all have that annotation at the bottom, approved by the select board.
Only if it's monetary, which this one would be if they're asking for a certain amount of money.
Right.
Actually, if this one's asking for permission for the future, it may not have that on there. But there's only certain ones that we're supposed to have that
Yeah.
recommend or non-recommend.
Wouldn't you be asking for $38,000 in 27? Would there be a specific?
I mean, you would, but you wouldn't, because the 27 vote for money would actually come in 27. We wouldn't vote for money in 26 to put on the 27 budget. What we'd really be working on is consensus that the town wants to do this and it's gonna cost us this much, and then we'd add it into the budget process, and it would be part of the budget that would be budgeted or voted on in 27.
Not as a separate one. Okay.
And so the 2027 town meeting warrant article might have that select board approves.
It would just probably fold into the budget, so there wouldn't be a warrant article
Gotcha.
for community nursing, it would just
Gotcha.
become a line item on like.
Exactly how Brandon did it.
Okay.
Emily?
So is this working under the assumption that we raise all 4 years, or as of 2026, once we have that covered, we are no longer fundraising and we are just bringing it to the town to fully fund? Is that
Question to the group.
the assumption in this plan?
Yes.
Yes, as long as the
Correct.
town votes in 26 to. Oh, we're gonna,
If not, you might have to hurry.
exactly, if not, we'd have to maybe regroup.
You can keep
Regroup on the
fundraising. I
plan.
would say that too. You can keep fundraising. Because even if you get permission for them to fund 100%, you could say, we have 20,000 and we need 20,000. And so we're gonna ask for, even if they approved it all the year before, you can ask for 20,000 and use the rest of your fundraising. Close the check. So,
And
yeah,
because of the way it's set up in the trust, would they just offset your tax?
yes, it would just offset the tax increase. So it phase it in, which the taxpayers would probably like.
Sure.
That's
Now
all
that,
the funding is made above.
I would just, yeah, I would plan the plan, but I would keep fundraising even if you hit your goal. I would just keep going. And then we can use it to lower the tax impact if it does get approved in the.
but that's not visible in the warrant process.
So I'll work with you on that, so we can show the data of what's happening, and it may not even have money in that actual first article. It may just be approval to add this service as a service provided by the town.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's turned down, then we regroup, and I don't want to plan for that.
Fundraising.
We'll see.
The other thing you might know by then is fundraising money's pouring in to support this program. Maybe we just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
A question about sustainability. So if, let's say I know this is if, talking in ifs, but so let's say 27, the town says great, but every year then, after that, the town can decide. We'll decide yes or no.
We do that on every
Yeah.
single thing we do.
Okay,
Once it usually gets incorporated in the budget and things, then it'll
Yeah, I
stay
guess
as
it's my
long as it's a worthwhile.
okay. So the data collection really still is gonna be important to, in addition to the fundraising, it's really just collection of this. And the monitoring of the data, okay.
Would you see this committee continuing indefinitely?
We'll see really what happens. I mean, the main focus of this committee is to review the data and to see if the program's working or not working.
Yeah, I
I
would
guess once it super gets established, do we really need to keep one or not? I don't know, we'll make that decision at the time.
Yeah, I guess I've been assuming that if 3 or 4 years in, town approves it, then it becomes a town function that you manage, like all the others, Don't need a committee, but that's the function.
Any other questions to Ed regarding this or fundraising? Outline, plan, any clarity based on?
So there's two plans presented. Was there consensus on both or one or the other? Or
I think,
it was
Think
changed?
it's,
Okay, I'm
yeah,
making sure that I understood the
Yeah.
conversation. 'Cause
Yeah.
I thought it changed, but based off of what
Yeah.
happened for me, it's
yeah,
confusing as to what.
so Steve, do you want to summarize one more time? What,
yeah, good question.
Yeah.
It's not really plan A or plan B, it's
Yeah.
amalgam. It's again, we will fundraise fully through 26. We will plan to go to town meeting in 26 for budget approval in 27.
Yeah, for approval.
In other words, we're off the hook in 27. Full funding by the town in 27, that's how I think. 10 hours per week. Yeah. Go up. We could increase that next year if a bunch of money comes in and we see the need, but for planning purposes, we're gonna set it at 10 years. So that's the plan.
Yep.
And currently, we don't have the bandwidth to offer you. Not that won't change next year, but if tonight you said, actually, we want to go to 20 hours, we would say, okay, well, you're gonna have to hire another nurse.
any other questions from the members on this? We will move along, to postcard mailing. Emily, please.
This was a fun bit of information to try to discover. I guess the one thing I will say, a huge thank you to David Brack, who was a very helpful resource in understanding some of these pieces, as well as Elisa Bonnet, who offered insight into the permitting process. I think based off of the information that I collected, there are some key pieces that we should decide on as a group to be able to have an accurate quote. But just kind of as the 10,000 foot picture, the master planning committee mailed a 8x10 mailer. It was double-sided, it was printed, and there were 2,600 copies made. With postage and the shipping costs for that printing to arrive, it cost $1,758, which did not include the design of the mailer. That was actually done through a contract under a grant, so that was not included in that pricing. And that also includes approximately 1 hour of volunteer time spent pre-sorting mail for the route carrier discount with our local post office. So 1,758, and again, that's based off of an 8x10 mailer. If we have a smaller piece of paper that's printed, it may go down to 35 cents per piece, go down to about $910. So it's anywhere from 900 to 1,200 for printing alone. Tack on at least 60 for shipping. And the every door delivery estimate for the postage is in the $550 range. And there are, based off of the gnarly government form that I stared down for a little while before I decided I was gonna go to the local post office and ask Troy for some help. There are a plethora of options, which having more information will help make that a little bit more targeted information. I will say, David did have some excellent insight as far as timing of the mailing that I would love to share with the group. He provided me with a kind reminder that, we both have, so there's a state primary coming up in September. And then we have the primary coming up in November. So he, just in terms of our timeline to be able to have things printed, sorted, and of course, in the printing process, we have to include the design and approval by other interested parties, stakeholders, to then go to the printer. So based off of that timeline, we would probably be looking at September, but to kind of think about those pieces so that it's not caught up in all of the extraneous things that may also be mailed at that time. Food for thought, which was very helpful.
Very good information. The 2,600, sorry, Steve, the 2,600, they're like verified deliverable addresses,
Yeah.
right? There's not like you're spending some postage and it.
Well, so it's in, what is it called? It's in every postage mailer or something to the effect where
It just
anybody
gets dropped.
has, yes, yeah, it's just, that is how many, so it's, I think the estimate was 2,528, so, you know, we'll need to print 2,600 to cover all of those. Which is exactly what the master planning did for those. It doesn't mean we won't get returned pieces or kind of avoid all those things, but we will get that reduced postage rate as well. And there are companies that can just kind of do the whole thing for you. I did not get to price those out because those are a little above and beyond. And again, not having a little bit more clear picture of the size, double-sided, is it gloss, is it matte? Like without having some of those details, it's hard to even have an accurate quote of that. So that's why I took the example that David gave me of the master plan, and that felt like a good fit based off of kind of the content that we would want to put out to our community as well, or kind of what I thought we would. But obviously feedback, if there's thoughts, if there's something else someone would like to know or outside information that would be helpful. But yeah, without more details, it's hard to nail that down.
Steve,
Just a question, who, I can't remember, who was working on the content of this?
if I recall in the previous meeting, we were talking about ways in which we can advertise, market what we're doing and what the community nursing program is, other than going to specific events or town hall. And so I believe I was the one who said, I thought that you could do mailing, like just mass mailing, but I don't think we actually decided what the mass mailing would be. I don't think we really discussed the content. It was just the idea of if we were to educate the community, what's another way that we don't have to go to like the farmer's market all the time, you know, so other ways other than just being in person.
Yeah.
So I think that this gives us a, I don't know that we need a full decision today, but we have some starting points as far as what the cost point would be. And I'm not even sure that September makes the most sense if we're trying to target, you know, as far as educating the community, you know, so. And there's a lot going out in the mail too around that time, so that does make me feel like we will be sort, you know, with the election, so I'm like, maybe it's like a winter thing, you know, when nothing is going out in the mail and people receive information. But anyway, it's essentially, that was, if I recall, that was just it, just to see how, other ways where we could educate the public.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out how we close the gap between sort of the concept and the details that you're gonna need to actually get a quote. I mean, is it a letter? Is it essentially this flyer or the Lebanon version of it?
Right.
So one thing to consider in that is that if we did something that was a letter that was stuffed in an envelope, that increases your cost drastically just because you're increasing the number of things that you're printing, the size of things that you're printing, the cost of that postage for each of those things that need to be mailed, as well as, I don't know how the stuffing goes, whether it's that or not. So it adds quite a level if you get to that. So yeah, I guess it depends on what the goal is and what the marketing approach would be.
As far as the content goes, we can ask the Dartmouth folks to just tell us what you want. I'm envisioning a postcard, or maybe like a little bit bigger postcard. Maybe like 5x7 instead of 4x6 or whatever it is you want it to be. But we can ask them to put together a draft for the content. That, unlike getting stuff printed, won't take forever.
Yeah, I mean, it could be informational, and then thinking ahead, if we were able to get a QR code, then we can get a QR code for donations, so that if people, there's a call to action also, like, hey, this program exists and we, you know, we're fundraising and this is all it's about, and then link to the site, a QR code to donate, and it sort of gets to the community.
Yeah.
All in different ways.
I'm,
And 2,600 people, well, you know, 2,600 homes is a lot, so.
I'm thinking, why not this fall and a year from now? Again, looking forward to 26 March or winter, whatever, but potentially we could send the same piece of information.
Yeah, so I find that most people start to expect, so November before Thanksgiving. So if you can hit November before Thanksgiving, it's really like a time where a lot of nonprofits, or in general, there's a call for donations and ask. People are a lot more generous because they're thinking of the holidays and the seasons. Once you hit like that post-December, now that I'm like walking back on my winter, because once you hit like that December and you get to January, people are thinking about budget and like tightening up. So just throwing that there. And
Two things also to consider in the timeline is that I know that for the Alice Peck Day grant, for us to be able to utilize it, we need to expend it by the end of the calendar year. So that would affect that timeline. And then I guess the only other thought is that if there are a lot of nonprofits that are trying to, you know, go for Giving Tuesdays and things like that, like it's kind of that same, it's a similar idea of how much competition do we have in the mail at this given time. And so I know it's a time of year that I get a little overwhelmed with every place that I've ever given $10, and
yeah,
I'm gonna pick and choose. And, you know, am I gonna choose something that's brand new, hopefully for the community? Yeah, but
One question and comment. So Jeremy, you suggested that Dartmouth could help with the, putting the flyer together. So we wouldn't have to pay necessarily, right, for design costs. But not the printing of that many, would you say, or what would you say?
We can have the conversation.
Okay,
I doubt it.
okay, yeah, that's a huge amount. Okay. And then to your point about November, I do kind of like that as well. Because if you think about it, like up until then, people are gonna get a lot of election mail and mail, and then the election will be over if it's post-election and before Thanksgiving. And to your point, of that may be a good giving time as well. It seems like it would be a good. Timing could be good.
This for, donation for fundraising or for referrals?
I think this is just really for for educating the community, saying this program exists.
I might leave referral information off of it and direct to the website, because that, if we started getting referrals that way,
Yeah, yeah.
that, I mean, we could, that would be our 10 hours just trying to process referrals that aren't necessarily appropriate referrals.
We had somebody call 25 times in 24
Yeah.
hours.
Literally, that's not even an exaggeration.
Yeah, so just promoting the website.
Yeah, just promoting going to the website, because yeah, if we start getting, again, that.
Right, and that is a peak time based on the data. That's your peak times.
Yeah,
Someone asked for, there was a discussion about magnets for Meals on Wheels too. We were like, oh God, no.
yeah.
We want it to be accessible, but not that accessible.
Yeah, like we are out of 10 hours, and those hours can be used on nursing, or they can be used kind of on processing referrals that just aren't like kind of a great fit, which I think is the point you were trying to get at.
Yeah.
So even though, and I hear you on the one fall, like we'd love to hit everybody up when they've had one fall. On the other hand, like when you only have 10 hours, you're trying to prioritize as well, so.
Yeah.
It's a bit of both.
Right.
It's a balance.
And my point earlier was like, not like everyone who has one fall must call a community nurse, but just like, it's gonna be people who are really having issues.
Right, and I hear you, but yeah, when you send out kind of a mass emailing or a mass mail, yeah.
Yeah. I think the promotion of the website would be great because that's trackable.
Yeah.
It's data and information that's trackable, and we can say, well, based on the 2,600 and this many more people came to the website, so it worked, and you know, and then if we receive funds, then that's also beneficial, so. I guess it also hinges on the QR code, if we have a way to collect, you know, that way, not to say you can't. Also say like, send in your checks to the town, which I'm sure people can too, so. Well, I mean, we're in June now, so if we're targeting everything to be sent out in before Thanksgiving, we have some time. So I think this is a good starting point of the discussion. I don't know that there's any immediate next steps to take unless someone feels like there is. If we can, I mean, it sounds like maybe we can see if what's possible with Dartmouth with the design.
Yeah,
'Cause that'll help us
We'll ask
just
for,
understand if we have to pay for a design cost for this. And I think it's simple, like you said, it's just what is the program, the website, and potentially like a QR code or something, a donation, a call to action. I don't know if that's two sides, it could be, because one could be about, and then the second page could be, here's the resources and please donate. So it could be both sides to maximize the postage.
That's, yeah, I was kind of hoping we could, I thought that was a great idea. I second that. And,
well, like, if we have a postcard, that's gonna be harder, because you have.
Right.
But yeah,
yeah, depending on the side. Well, I guess, and that's where, I guess, if we know that the fall is going to be a target timeline, then I would recommend that at the next meeting, we prioritize kind of what does that timeline look like? And, you know, I can try to be in touch with Jeremy to see, you know, how long would it take, or maybe you even know how long would it take to kind of have an example to present for approval, because then we're going on to the printing process. Okay, now we're 2 weeks out, and then after that, we got to get to the postage. So,
Yeah.
you know, we have to think at least 8 weeks ahead, and we only have one meeting a month. So it can sneak up on us very quickly. So I would just recommend that we kind of have a pretty clear outline of what that timeline looks like for each of our upcoming meetings, if that's the timeline we want to adhere to.
That makes sense to me. Anyone else?
So that would be decided in the next meeting. I just want to make sure I'm writing this down correctly. Or is somebody going to work on that ahead of the next meeting? That's the timeline.
Would it be possible to have a draft of,
I mean,
5x7, I guess?
I can't make any
No, I know.
promises,
Yeah.
but I think so.
Okay.
I think that's completely reasonable.
So I guess part of it is based off of what
The
information do
design,
we want
yeah.
on there to fit, because the more information you're gonna want, more kind of the 8x11. A little less, we could probably go 5x7. And the smallest would be 4x6.
Yeah.
the 5x7 kind of stays within that middle range, maybe.
Yeah, I think a 5x7, and partly because I think if we wanna go larger, we wanna test this first, if there's like initial, response, whether it's through the website, maybe later on referrals and donations for sure. And then I think in next year, as we're heavily fundraising, then we go all out and we sort of like have a nice, similar to the master plan, and perhaps we'll be spending funds there as well, so. So we'll, I guess if we can, that would be great, have some kind of preliminary draft to comment on. If not, then I think in the next meeting, we should discuss what contents, makes the most sense, and look at options for design, if we can just do it. I mean, I work with Canva, so I don't know, I could create
Same.
something, so we can, yeah. All right. Anything else about the postcard? Cool. All right, so we can move into other business for public comments. Yes,
Looking ahead 3 years, which is my understanding from the community of how much funding you have for this program. And beyond, when you're beginning to look for town funding, I would urge the community nursing program to decide on some meaningful metrics to justify ongoing cost effectiveness, particularly after your current funding by donations runs out. Because I think although it will go before town meeting, it will also each year go before the budget committee. And we'll be looking for those metrics to say that this is a cost-effective program and should be continued. And when money articles go on town meeting, there's the approval by the town, select board, but there's also a line of what the vote is by the budget committee.
thank you. Noted. Any other comments? Okay, thoughts on future agenda items, so I think I'll kick off with one of them being the campaign, we'll call it, the educational fundraising campaign for the fall. And the tied to postcards, so that would be one of our agenda items. Any other thoughts on next meeting's agenda item? Should we do a brief recap, Steve, maybe for the others just a quick clarification, yeah, just for in the it'll be in the minutes, but just others that aren't here.
I'm also thinking that in the first draft that you all saw, I tried to lay out a rough time sequence for the fundraising, and I think I can revise that with a little more clarity and specificity.
Okay,
I could just talk to that briefly.
great. Any other agenda items?
I think to that point about the metrics, I know we have the data points as far as referrals and whatnot. I think that's a really good point, and I don't know if we have decided. I know we've talked about ambulance calls or whatever, but like what if the committee's decided what additional data we might be collecting to get toward that point, so.
So the ambulance call volume and the ambulance call volume, hospitalizations and hospital readmissions, we analyze every 6 months.
So that may be all we, yeah.
So
Having
you
that.
will get that
Okay,
the beginning of August, most likely. It's due to our data analyst by the 15th, and then they'll do their voodoo on Excel and compile it into a report, and should have it by the start of August.
and I'm sorry, you said hospitalizations, ambulance calls and readmissions, those are the 3 points.
ED visits.
ED visits, ED readmission.
Yeah, and then there's a few other points that you're not really gonna care about, like where the referrals came from.
Given the small numbers, are those done, with comparison to other towns and
So because the numbers are so small, we're gonna wait and see. I suspect that at least for this first 6-month period, we're just gonna have to give you aggregate programmatic data. Because my fear is that it would become identifiable if we hammer down too hard. But as soon as we have enough volume to separate it out, we'll be able to show you how Enfield compares to Lebanon at least.
And we could potentially look at predating the program data as well, you know, right? To what was Enfield like the 5 years previous or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
In principle, could we present data, say at a town meeting for all 3 towns?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
just to make the numbers
Yep.
larger and more meaningful
Yeah.
than just Enfield. Yeah, okay. There's no issue about.
Yeah, we can leave it aggregate data if that's what you all want.
Yeah, that's just.
Which, you know, is theoretically an accurate measure, at least anecdotally from what we've seen. Nowhere's any different. The referrals are a little slower in Grantham.
Yeah.
But as far as the work we're doing in Lebanon versus Enfield, it's
I mean,
not dramatically different.
I think the case we would be making either to the town meeting or eventually to the budget committee would be Lebanon's running a 3-town program and this is the effectiveness of it.
Right.
I would think that'd be pretty convincing.
Yeah, and
They're
at least
gonna
for this,
ask- They're gonna ask what's happening.
And Enfield, yeah.
So have that data ready if you can.
right,
Right. But if
At
that
least in
data
this first
goes up
6
and down
months.
like this, then 3 towns will be bigger.
at least for the first 6 months, that's probably all we're gonna be comfortable giving you is how it's working in all 3 towns.
So it sounds like in the next meeting, we should dive a little bit more and talk about not just the data that we want to see, but the stories, also anecdotal items that we want to make sure we start to organize and be prepared for the next few months.
Yeah, we include a patient story in our semi-annual reports.
Oh, that's great.
So far, they've all been from Lebanon, so. But. Oh, no, it's not even true. We used an Enfield resident for the last year, two of them ago. So we do have a patient story all ready to go from an Enfield resident.
Well, we are at 6:33, so does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, if you're opposed, you will just hang around here.
Thank you.
And I will say, as questions come up, things will come up as you're preparing for town meeting and stuff, please get those to Emily to get to me.
Yeah.
Please, if you are communicating, direct communication portal from myself.
Bruce.
I'm not gonna be able to attend too many meetings to answer questions, but that's probably something, but
Thank you for coming today.
Yeah.
This helped a lot. You have to explore with you. Thank you.
but she
Happy 4th, everybody, right? We'll see each other after, I know, where do you say happy 4th?